Hi guys, how you doing?
Hi, are you okay?
Good, thank you. Again, big thanks for doing this. I'm Byron Clithero. I'm the Honorary Education Officer for Physio First. Part of my job remit is putting together education resources for all the physios and physio clinics that we work with. We've got an edition of our magazine coming up on the Commonwealth Games. I've got a few good physios writing for us, and then somebody mentioned wouldn't it be a really good idea to get the athlete and coach perspective on physio. I think I've got the perfect partnership for that. So I think most people know that we've got the Commonwealth Games coming up in Birmingham. So I have with me the poster boy, I believe, for the Commonwealth Games, Fraser, a World Champion Gymnast. And unless I'm wrong, you're one of only 3 World Champion Gymnasts in artistic gymnastics from Great Britain. Is that right?
Yeah.
Max,
That's right.
Max and Beth, I think the only other 2. Okay, also an Olympic finalist, multi-medal winning gymnast in international competitions, and alongside him is coach, who's obviously helped produce all that, along with a whole squad of gymnasts who won massive international success. So obviously the other reason that you were really good to interview, Joe, is that I believe you've just recovered from a shoulder injury and following shoulder surgery. So first question and over to you is, what was the injury?
So I had a rotator cuff tear and a tendon tear.
Okay, and do you know what surgery it was you had?
Yeah, he had it put back together.
That's not very technical. Okay,
I think
you just had it all repaired.
The rotator cuff had a 1.3 millimeter C-shaped tear, and the whatever other tear it was a centimetre, I think. Was that right?
Okay.
Something along those lines. All I know is it was, and it definitely needed surgery.
Right, okay. So how quickly, so the difference, we'll try to sort of the difference between the physio that an elite athlete gets and what somebody in private practice will get and somebody what the NHS will get. So how quickly were you seen by the physio after the surgery?
So I went in within a week of having the surgery, not to start any physio exercises, just to, make sure, because I started doing slight movements, because I wasn't allowed out of the sling majority of the day. So it was just to see how I felt and how much pain I was in after the surgery.
Okay, so
doing actual physio work until 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4, 2 to 4 weeks after.
Right. Okay. So you were just given really basic exercises, I presume, and then just immobilized for the first 2 to 4 weeks. Okay. So after that, so how often were you being seen for physio after that initial rest period in a sling?
For me, I tried to treat physio when I'm injured like that, just as I would training. So I understood that I wouldn't be in the gym from 9:30 till 5 anymore. So I could spend that time with our physio. So I was happy to take the trip to Lilleshall and be with our physio Johnny all day, every day. So as much as I could, I was up here, and I was lucky enough, lucky or unlucky enough, to have Gianni, who was doing a very similar surgery recovery journey with me at the same time. So it made it easier for us to bounce off each other whilst we were recovering.
Okay, that's good. So for anybody who doesn't know, so Gianni is one of the other Olympic team members that trains at Lilleshall, which is the National Sports Centre for Gymnastics. Okay, so you're spending quite a few hours down having treatment, because that's really unusual. So in sort of normal private practice, you get an appointment for half an hour or maybe 45 minutes, or you're lucky an hour, but you're spending virtually a full day getting rehab, were you?
Yeah. So myself, Johnny, and our strength and conditioning coach Rudy, who was, molding that structure of my plan together day by day, and we were adapting it day by day to see, well, depending on my progress or if it was a bit more sore the next day. So we was doing everything we could to manage that journey best way we could.
Okay, and will you be seen every day for that long? Or were you doing a few times a week, or?
5 days. I'd be here Monday to Friday, and then I'd do a session at G in Birmingham on the Saturday.
Right. Okay. Gosh, a lot of physio then. Okay, so
Byron, it might be important to say that in those hours that he was with the guys, the physio and the strength and conditioning, it was predominantly about his shoulder, but it was about keeping him well-rounded. So he did a lot of leg work, core work, every muscle that he could do. Because he couldn't do his gymnastics training, they were looking after him. So although his shoulder was immobilised, they looked after the whole, his whole body.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so to keep him as fit as he possibly could, so he'd get back to his training as quick as possible. Yeah, that's good. So how many different physios did you have involved then? So obviously you just told us you had Johnny down at Lillishall. How many other people were involved in your rehab?
To start with, I had one physio in Birmingham, and she helped work with Johnny to make sure that because that was the first month, so just making sure that what she was setting me to do was exactly what Johnny wanted me to do, and what Johnny wanted me to do was what she was setting. So they worked together for that period, and then after that, I was allowed to drive again. So I was just making the trip to Lillishall.
Yeah,
so
it was mainly just Johnny at that point, was it?
Yeah, after that, it was just Johnny.
Okay, cool. So when you're looking at physios who look after you, okay, so what do you sort of place the most importance on? So would it be their clinical knowledge, how much knowledge they have of gymnastics, or their knowledge of just being able to perform at high level sport? What would you think was the most important thing to you as an athlete receiving and as a coach working with physios?
I think they need to know their stuff, of course.
Yeah.
With a sport like gymnastics, we do so much different training to other sports. I think it is quite crucial that they understand the forces and the things we're putting our body through on a day-by-day basis, so they know how to get us back to that fully fit.
Yeah.
And I guess without that, it would be very hard for them to understand what you need to do to get back. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really high level, highly demanding sport, especially on your shoulders for a male gymnast. Okay. So one of the things I found when I was sort of coaching at a reasonably high level, and hopefully it's a lot better now, is have you ever had instances where there's been conflict between the physio and the coach or yourself, that they're telling you, previously I would have physios who would say complete rest. As you just mentioned before, they've got to try and keep the gymnast as fit as they possibly can. So even if your shoulder's injured, you're keeping fit with the rest of your body. Do you still have issues like that, particularly you, Lee, or do you find that's pretty not much of an issue anymore?
For me, those issues do occur, but they tend to be in the physios that are not really, they're bought in to cover a session and they don't really know the sport, or they're new physios who are eager to get everything right and they don't actually understand the sport. But I think with Johnny, because he understands gymnastics, he's been around now for 5 years. Yeah. He understands that actually we need the kids to train, so we'll do everything in our power to continue that training whilst managing injuries. Certainly we don't push kids to train on any injured parts, but the demand for is so high that having a physio turn around and say to us that you can't do floor and pommels today because your ankle's hurting or your wrist's hurting, actually, well, there's plenty of other things we can be doing without complete rest,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so obviously you also have a physio that you work with most of the time, but when you're going away on competitions and things, again, do you find though when you're on competitions that the physio that's going away with you complements what you're doing with the physios back at home, or again, is there potential conflict sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer this very quickly and then Joe can have his say, but because we are in a very privileged position to be part of the senior GB team, 99% of the time it's Johnny anyway. So Johnny's the senior physio. But I'm pretty certain if you spoke to some of the junior coaches who have physios that are bought in for that specific trip, then obviously each physio's got their own opinion and stuff. So from a senior point of view, yeah, Johnny tends to travel as part of the delegation, just like the coach and the gymnasts do. So we don't tend to.
You don't come across that issue?
No, not really.
That's good. Okay, and one of the other things that is really hard when you're a physio out on the floor at high level events is that having to make really difficult decisions. So the example I sort of give is you've got a gymnast in a very high level competition like the Worlds or the Olympics, they dislocate the finger, okay, and then they need to do vault is the last piece, okay? And that vault can mean that Great Britain wins a team medal or that individual wins a medal, okay? So obviously there is a little bit of danger element. So do we say, no, you can't do it, you dislocated your finger, or do we strap you up, put some freeze spray on it and say, go and do your duty for your country? So what would be your take on that?
Personally, I think it would be down to the gymnast, really. Because if in a team situation, if that was myself, I would do my utmost to compete.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't need somebody to tell me, Joe, you can do vault. For me, that would have to come from me. So whether they tell me you can't or you can do it, I will make my own decision based on how I'm actually feeling.
Yeah.
Even the experience and the knowledge that I don't.
Yeah, well, again, if a physio did say to you in that situation, you've dislocated your finger, don't do vault, okay, even though you know you've got a chance of being an Olympic medalist, whether it's team or individual, you pretty much would say, I'm doing it anyway. Is what we say.
Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, dependent on the injury, it's always a balancing act, but it's just it's one of those difficult decisions you sometimes have to make as a physio, coach, gymnast.
Yeah, and it's a bit.
So I think that's pretty much everything I need to ask you. So the only sort of last question is from both of you, really. What's the thing you most value about a physio?
I think for me it would be trust,
Right.
Knowing that I can trust their judgment on certain parts of the sport, knowing that they understand the relationship of gymnastics and recovery.
Right.
Because if I don't trust then their knowledge of how to get fit or how to come back from certain injuries, then I'll be a bit skeptical to do the rehab, I guess, and I might neglect certain parts of it. So I think, yeah, trust. But of course, that comes over time, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Okay, anything from you, Lee?
I'm pretty much the same. I mean, if you think about how Joe trusts me to develop his program and develop him as a gymnast, then we have to trust the physio to be able to give us the right advice, the right diagnosis, the right rehab in order to get him where he needs to be. And I think that's purely based on time together and relationships and trusting their ability to do their job.
Okay. Massive thanks, guys. Really appreciate that. See you at the British. Best of luck.
Yeah, sure. Cheers, buddy.
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Thanks again. See you later.
Bye.